Next, we'll go into the step 2 of the BIM project execution planning procedure. So you can see here that step 2, what we want to do is to develop a process which includes the tasks supported by BIM along with the information exchanges. Now, under this step 2, there is actually two sub-steps that we need to carry out. We need to produce a BIM overview map, and then after that we need to from the overview map we produce a detailed BIM use process map. Okay, so from your initial step 1, when you are trying to achieve the different BIM goals, you would probably identify the different types of BIM users along the this different phase of your construction projects. So maybe, okay, the project team has identified that in order to achieve the different project BIM goals, they need to have, among other models or users, a 3D BIM model for a particular set of use, okay, a 5D BIM model for another specific type of use, the structural design BIM model, the coordination BIM model, the 4D BIM model, or the 6D BIM models. So in this simple example, I've shown, say, 6 different BIM users. So in the step 2, what you need to do is to arrange all these different users into a proper sequence. Okay, into a proper sequence, for example, something like this. So from your 3D BIM model, concurrently you can then develop further to become a structural BIM model. And when you add in the schedule, you can then have the 4D BIM model. And when the contractor start to come on board, then the contractor can take the information from the structural BIM model to carry out certain form of coordination together with this 4D BIM model. And then after that, you can get the 5D BIM model followed by 6D BIM model. So that is the intent of this step 2. Okay, that is the intent. So the overview, this map shows the relationship of the different BIM users. For example, your 3D BIM model with the coordination model, with the structural model, with the 5D and the 6D model, which will be employed on the project throughout the project life cycle, from the planning stage to the design stage to the construction stage to the operation stage. So the process map also contains high-level information exchange that occur throughout the project life cycle. So to create the BIM overview map, what we do is that we place all the potential BIM users, your 3D BIM model, coordination model, so on and so forth, into this a map. Okay, and arrange the BIM users according to the project sequence in the BIM overview map, and identify the responsible parties for each particular BIM use or BIM use. Determine the information exchange required to implement the particular BIM use. So that is the intention of the first step. Then you go on to the second step under this particular, the execution plan. So the initial step could look something like this, where you have a series of these information boxes where you can put down your this process name. It could be, say, 3D BIM model. Who is the party that is responsible, okay, to create this 3D BIM model, update this 3D BIM model, and own the 3D BIM model? What is the particular phase of the project? Where is it in the detail map? So you have the input going into this particular BIM use, the 3D BIM model, and then the output, where does it goes to? Okay, so that is the first stage. Then after you go on to the second stage in this step 2. which is to come out with a detailed beam use process map. Okay, so detailed beam use process map are created for each identified beam use on the project to clearly define the sequence of various processes to be performed. So these maps also identify the responsible parties for each process, the reference information content, and the information exchanges which will be created and shared with the other processes. So how do we then create this so-called detailed beam use process map? Okay, we will hierarchically decompose the beam use into a set of processes. So in the next slide, I will show you. Okay, so define the dependency between the different processes, develop a detailed process map with the required information, add goal verification gateways at important decision point in the process. Then we document, review, and refine this process for further use. Okay, so in the next slide, I'll show you an example using the beam use case of 4D beam model. Okay, 4D beam model. Okay, so let's say you want to create a detailed beam use process map for 4D modeling. Okay, or that means you want to have your this beam model that allows this 4D modeling. Okay, so there are a series of processes that you need to go through. Okay, so because there are different types of processes, so you see that there are different meanings for the different shapes of the so-called figures in the process map, and normally we follow a consistent system. All right, so what is the typical consistent system? Let me show you. This is the process mapping notation typically that is used for beam. Okay, so if you have an event, the notation is a circle. If it's a process, then the notation is a rectangle. If it is a gateway, that means you need to make a decision whether is it yes or is it no. If yes, then something will happen. If no, then something else will happen. We normally use a diamond, okay, or a diamond. And then the sequence flow, we use an arrow, okay. Association, we use a dotted line or dotted arrow. And then after that, the pool or the lane basically is something like the the interface here, okay. And if it's a data object, okay, normally you pull it out as something like a document file, okay. Or then group, okay, typically we use a dot and dash this box, right? So these are the typical notation for the process activities, okay. So again, coming back to just now where you want to have a detailed this process for the beam use of a 4D modeling, what does it look like or how does it look like? Let's take a look. You divide the whole page, if you like, into 3 zones. Okay, the middle zone is where you show all the process steps, and then the top this zone, you will indicate what are the reference information that is needed while you are going to go through the process for that particular beam use. Okay, and the bottom portion will indicate the information exchange that is needed for the process to go on smoothly. So you start with the start process notation, okay, and in this case for 4D modeling, you probably need to have this established this information exchange requirement, okay, and that will be required by all the discipline, all the stakeholders, and you need to have a set of construction sequencing and flow, okay, so that will be under the care of say the construction manager, you call it the CM, okay. So the construction manager, okay, in order for him to do all this, he will go and get the reference information, say for example possible project delays, okay, from discussion with the various stakeholders, okay, what is the projected weather condition throughout the different stages of the construction, okay. So from there he will give an output, okay, he will give an output that is able to create some kind of a schedule, okay, or create some kind of a schedule, okay. So the schedule, okay, so-called this particular box will be under the ownership also of the construction managers, okay, and the various so-called trade consultants, all right, the trade consultants. So the construction manager, when he's trying to prepare the schedule, he will also need the information, okay, for example, on the lead time for some of the critical activities, for example, okay, or the productivities of the various activity that will be needed in order for him to prepare a workable schedule. Yeah, and the purpose of the schedule is to link with the 3D model, the BIM model. Okay, so after the schedule has been prepared, the output then will be used to link with the 3D BIM model. Okay, which is again under the ownership of the construction manager. But your 3D BIM model must include sufficient information to be able to do the 4D scheduling, you see. So that sufficient information, okay, must also include, for example, your structural model and the architectural model and the rest of the models from the other disciplines. So that is where you need to have a standard for this information or the file exchange. Because when the architectural model comes in, it may be in a different file format from the structural model, which may be in a different file format as compared to the M&E model. Okay, so you need to have this interoperability between the different this type of files, so that it can be read and understood, okay, by the main model lah. Yeah. So all this will be indicated so that everybody knows what is needed, okay, in the process that is going to create the 4D modeling. Okay, so we link, okay, the schedule, okay, to the 3D model. But in order to link the schedule to the 3D model, the diagram basically shows us that there are different parties that is responsible, and the different parties need to get, okay, or have access to the vital documents, okay, or information that is found in the documents. So you create this link the schedule to the 3D this model, okay. Then after that, the construction manager again needs to validate the accuracy of the resulting 4D model, right? So when he validates, then it goes to a gateway. That means there is a decision. He will need to make a decision to see whether is the model accurate or not accurate. So if it's not accurate, then he needs to go back to this previous activity to try to get it up to speed, okay, so that it becomes accurate. Okay, so when it's accurate, then it goes to the next stage where you can get what we call a review, okay, of the 4D model by all the different disciplines. Okay, so along the way, okay, the output that will be created will be the 4D model. Okay, also again, you must have a proper this file exchange format so that the different disciplines, they can read, okay, the information in the 4D model. Okay, so the review, okay, by all the different disciplines, again, there is a gateway, okay, to see whether is the schedule optimized. Okay, so if it is not optimized, then it goes back all over to the earlier part of the process, where the construction manager will need to get the further information, okay, and then after that review the schedule to link the model again, validate the model, then come back to all the discipline for them to review again until, okay, everybody agrees that the schedule is optimized. And once the schedule is optimized, the process ends for this particular BIM use called 4B modeling. And at the end of the whole process, there will be output. Okay, the output will be the 4D model, which can be used to be visualizing, how the construction will look like at different stages, okay, of the project phase, as well as the schedule. All right. So that is the end of the phase 2 of the step 2 . Yeah.